Now we're ready to create an image from this displaced view. Before I go and show you how to export it and what settings we're going to try and use, and then maybe some later settings we could try to use if it's not looking great, there are a couple elements here, namely some entourage, which I've just modeled as 1 foot by 2 foot by 6 foot masses and just placed them all over my building. I'll probably have a tutorial on this, but it's not a necessary thing. Just keep in mind that that's what you're looking at. This is just like some people that are around the lot. Before we print it, take care to look at your displacement levels and maybe find a different view that maybe is not isometric. Isometric is a really good starting point where you can select your displacement sets. You can actually find some close values to what they are displaced as, and then give these even increments. So that was 222. Now this would be double that. It would be 400 because I changed this one to 200, and then this one would be 600, for instance. This one would be negative 200. So I know that these are at each increments, but if you have a canopy that you've exploded, or if you have, a basement and then a foundation, it might become a lot, quite a tall drawing. So you can always drag this to get a little bit lower. Don't go too low, otherwise we can't really see what's going on. But an isometric view is always a good starting point. And you can always right click and you can save the view too, just so you can move around, modify elements, push and pull them. And be able to come back to that view. But I'm going to just go into an isometric view here. And let's pull this up just a little bit so we have a little bit more room between all of the elements, and I think everything else is looking good. So how do we print this? Well, the first thing we need to do is show the crop region. And what this is going to do is allow us to see what will be printed out. So once you show the crop region, we can go ahead and pull this so that it crops it a little bit better, and try to use that same distance, whatever this would actually be. You can use model lines or annotation lines here, but actually in the 3D view I don't know if you can use annotation lines. You can use model lines to try and snap, but it's probably not worth it. I would just pull these in and try to get it to be relatively close, so that you don't have a ton of extra border around it, but there is a little bit of white space, about the same distance between the displacement sets. So once we have that done, we actually need to crop the view, and once we do that, we can actually select the crop, and we can select the size crop button, and this will tell us a few things. Now, for printing digitally, it doesn't matter so much, but for when we're going to print these physically, if we ever do, we want to keep this height to about 40 inches. And the way that you would change it is if you change this to 40 inches and you hit apply, you can see that that's just going to go down. So we can't do that. We actually need to change the scale so the drawing is actually smaller to fit the same size crop. So this is 1/16. I'm going to change it to 1 inch equals 20. And now if I select the size crop, you can see that this is changed to 45. That's probably still a bit too big. So I would probably change this. Let's just do 1 inch equals 30 because 3/64 is a kind of a weird scale. I can select it, go to the size crop, and now you can see that's 30 inches. And again, it doesn't really matter so much for this digital printing. I would just try and keep this between 1 inch equals 20 and 1 inch equals 40. Now you're going to see a difference on your line weights when you print these out. So this next part of the tutorial, just keep in mind you might have to do it a couple different times with a couple different settings to try and get the cleanest image that's not too large of a file. So I'm going to use this 1 inch equals 30 so that I know that my size crop is about 30 by 13. And I can go to File, Export, scroll down to where it says Images and Animations, and I can go to an image. Now here I need to change the location and the name, so I'm just going to put it on the desktop here, so I'll call this Exploded View 1. And we need to change this image size to zoom to 100%. This current window is fine. Change the shaded views and the non-shaded views to lossless. And then change your image quality to 150. And everything else here can stay the same. We want to hide all of the scope boxes and stuff. So you can hit OK. and it will take a second to load. And now we can go to our desktop and we can see exploded view 1. And this is good, right? It's looking pretty good. Now if you zoom in, you can see that these lines aren't anti-aliased because this is not a raster file. It's not a vector file, it's a raster file. And this is where I'm recommending that you might want to try a couple different Dpi and scale tests. So that was done at 1 inch equals 30 at 158 Dpi. So I'm gonna do that again. I'm gonna go to File, Export, Images and Animations, Image. We're going to keep everything the same, except I'm going to change this to 300 Dpi. So I'm going to change the name, Exploded View 2. Can delete that. Now it's going to take larger to load because we've added a lot more pixels. So now we can do Exploded View 2. And you can see that this is view 1 and this is view 2. The lines look a little bit lighter, but that's because if we zoom in, you can see that they're a little bit crisper. So I would go back and forth and just see which one you like a little bit better, which one looks better on your portfolio. And when we actually go and print this, we're probably going to go to much higher DPI. The last thing you can test out is actually changing the scale to a lower value. Like, let's go back to 1/16. Where is it? There we go. And now if we select our size crop, you can see that this is a pretty large file. And we're going to go to File, Export, Images and Animations, Image. And keep that all the same, zoom 100%. I'm going to change the name and location again, and let's call it Exploded View 3. So we can see the difference between all of them. And this one's going to take probably a lot longer to load because we've multiplied by a quite large number the amount of pixels. Let's go to the desktop, look at it. And here you can see if we zoom in, it's starting to get even crisper. So let's zoom out here. This is the large file, this is the second large file, and this is the smallest file. So you can see that it looks like the line weights are getting lighter, but they're actually not. They're staying the same weight. So this is I would just recommend doing a few of these and seeing which one you like the most. Which one looks the best depending on how many lines you have, etc. And the last thing you would take note is that that last file is 8.7 megabytes, the middle file is 4 megabytes, and the first file is only 1.5. So you could see that these things are multiplying in their size. So depending on your printing limits in real life, or depending on your file upload limits on the web, you might want to choose one of these over another. But that is it for this tutorial, and now you should have an exploded view yeah, good representation of your building.